Same $80,000 a year coming out of your retirement accounts. Same $500,000 paid off home. Two retirees. One picks Pennsylvania, one picks Ohio. 10 years later, one of them saved tens of thousands of dollars, the other one didn't. And most retirees pick the wrong state for the wrong reason. I'm Jim Stevenson, a realtor here in the Philadelphia suburbs, and this is one of the most common comparisons I run with relocating families. And the real answer surprises most of them. Here's the first thing I need you to understand. When people say Pennsylvania and Ohio are tax-friendly for retirees, that's about half true. Both states leave Social Security completely alone. Not a penny of state or local tax. Same deal in both places. But the second you step outside Social Security, these two states go in completely different directions. Now you're probably thinking Ohio has to be cheaper. It's the Midwest. Costs are lower across the board. That makes sense on the surface. Here's what actually happens when you look at retirement income. If your money is coming out of a 401k or a traditional IRA and you're over 59 and a half, Pennsylvania taxes it at 0%. The state takes nothing. No credit to apply for, no phase out to worry about. Once you're past 59 and a half, that money just isn't taxed at the state level. Same rule applies if you're one of the shrinking group of people still drawing a pension. Ohio doesn't work that way. Ohio taxes your 401k withdrawals. Ohio taxes your traditional IRA distributions. It taxes your pensions too. The state offers some senior credits that soften the blow a bit, but if you're drawing $100,000 a year from your retirement accounts, Ohio will take roughly $2,500 a year that Pennsylvania wouldn't. That's $2,500 a year, every year for the rest of your life. And this is the exact math I walk families through before they even start talking to a moving company. And here's the piece most people miss. Two retirees can pull the exact $80,000 a year and get completely different answers from these two states. Same income, different source, different result. So here's the pattern you need to see. I call it the income versus asset divide. If your wealth lives in monthly income like 401k and IRA withdrawals, Pennsylvania is a fortress. One of the most generous states in the country for retirement account withdrawals. But if you're mostly on Social Security, the two states are essentially a tie at the income level. And that's when the conversation shifts hard to property taxes and what happens to your state when you're gone. But that income tax story is only the beginning, because the moment you start looking at property taxes, the math flips in the other direction. All right, so Pennsylvania wins on retirement income. Ohio should feel like the expensive choice. It's not, because Pennsylvania has a property tax problem, a real one. And the southeastern suburbs of Philadelphia are ground zero. If you're in Bucks, Montgomery, Chester, or Delaware County, you're not paying an average property tax. You're paying a punishing one. A $500,000 home in Central Bucks School District runs about $9,000 a year in taxes. Some townships push past $10,000. That's $750 a month in property tax on a paid-off house. Let me put that in real numbers. If you buy a $500,000 home in the Philadelphia suburbs and you pay cash, you still owe roughly $9,000 a year. That's $90,000 over a decade on a house you already own outright. Now you're probably thinking Ohio has to blow Pennsylvania out of the water here. Lower home prices, Midwest values at Midwest prices. Here's the catch. Ohio's effective property tax rate is basically identical to Pennsylvania's statewide average, around 1.57% in both states. What changes is the underlying home price. A $400,000 home in Columbus or Cincinnati gets you way more house than a $400,000 home in Doylestown or Newtown. More square footage, newer construction, bigger lot, probably a finished basement too. That's where Ohio's housing advantage actually lives, in the purchase price. The ongoing tax bill is about the same. So if you're selling a $700,000 home here and buying a $400,000 home in Ohio, you pocket $300,000 in equity. That's real. But your monthly property tax bill won't be dramatically lower once you settle in. You're buying a bigger, newer house out there, not a cheaper one to own. And one more thing on the housing side. A lot of retirees in my market downsize into a 55 plus community or a condo to cut the maintenance. That part works. Then the HOA bill shows up, $400 a month, sometimes more. You stop mowing the lawn, but the HOA bill replaced whatever you saved. Your total monthly burn barely moved. Happens in both states. The cheapest house to buy isn't always the cheapest house to own. Now the part most retirees never hear about is the senior property tax relief programs. Pennsylvania and Ohio take completely different approaches here. One of them will help you year after year with almost no effort. The other one makes you fight for it every spring. And if you're thinking about moving to the Philadelphia suburbs, I'd love to help you figure out what actually fits your situation. Book a call using the link in the description whenever you're ready, or grab my free Philadelphia Suburbs relocation guide using the QR code on screen. So here's how the two relief programs work in real life. Ohio has the homestead exemption. If you're 65 or older and your Ohio adjusted gross income is under $40,000, the state shields $29,000 of your home's assessed value from property tax. Social Security doesn't count toward that income limit. So a lot of middle-class retirees qualify without even realizing it. And here's the best part. Once you're approved, it's automatic. Every year, forever. Your tax bill just comes in lower. You don't have to do a thing. Pennsylvania does it differently. The property tax and rent rebate program is a reimbursement. You pay your taxes up front, then you apply for a rebate. The income limit is $45,000, and only half your Social Security counts. The maximum rebate is $1,000. That sounds fine until you realize you have to apply every single year. New paperwork, I know the deadline to hit, miss 1 year, and you forfeit the money. So Ohio's senior relief is structurally better. It's automatic, no paperwork after the first application. Pennsylvania's version is a yearly gauntlet. For a lot of retirees, especially as they get older, that difference matters more than the dollar amount. But here's where Pennsylvania and Ohio really split. Because everything we've talked about so far, income tax, property tax, senior relief, that's all stuff you deal with while you're alive. The next piece is what happens when you're not. Pennsylvania has an inheritance tax. Ohio does not. And this is the one piece of the puzzle that hits exactly once and you can't undo it. Here's how it works in Pennsylvania. When you die, the state taxes your estate based on who inherits it. If everything goes to your spouse, it's 0%. Spouses are fully protected. But if your kids inherit it, they pay 4.5% on the value. That's not small. On a $600,000 estate, let's say a $400,000 home and $200,000 in savings, Pennsylvania takes $27,000 before it ever reaches your kids. And it gets worse from there. If you're leaving assets to a sibling, the rate jumps to 12%. That same $600,000 estate would hand the state $72,000. And if you're leaving it to a niece, a nephew, or an unmarried partner, 15%. That's $90,000 on a $600,000 estate. Ohio takes 0 across the board. Doesn't matter who inherits, doesn't matter how much. 2 months ago, I'm sitting at a kitchen table in Warrington. Across from me is a woman in her late 70s. Her husband had just passed about 6 months earlier. She's thinking about selling the 4-bedroom home they raised their kids in, and she's trying to decide between a condo here in Bucks County or move out to her son's town outside of Columbus. She just adopted a senior rescue dog the week before. Little white dog couldn't stop panting. He circled the kitchen table a few times before, settling at her feet. She kept scratching his ears while we talked. I'm pulling up the inheritance tax math on my iPad. She's leaning over my shoulder. About 30 seconds in, she looks up at me and says, "So if I stay here and pass this to my son, Pennsylvania takes 4.5% on all of it?" I told her yes. She didn't say anything for a while, just kept petting the dog. The reason I'm telling you this is because the inheritance tax shaped her whole decision. For her, it came down to leaving her son a clean inheritance or leaving him a tax bill. On her roughly $500,000 estate, Pennsylvania would quietly take about $22,500. Ohio would take nothing. She made her decision the next week. That doesn't mean Ohio is the right call for every retiree. If you're passing everything to a spouse, Pennsylvania's 0% spousal rate makes this whole issue irrelevant. If you're leaving your estate to charity, also 0. But for the middle-class family, passing a home and some savings down to kids or non-spouse heirs, Pennsylvania quietly takes a bite most people never see coming. All right, so here's where we are. Pennsylvania wins on income tax. Ohio wins on inheritance. Property taxes are roughly a wash once you adjust for home price. But there's one more thing you need to factor in: weather, specifically winter. Northern Ohio, anything around Cleveland, gets hammered by lake effect snow. Multiple feet some winters, and the cloud cover is no joke. From November through April, Cleveland is one of the grayest, most overcast cities in the country. For a retiree with mobility issues or anyone sensitive to seasonal affective disorder, that matters a lot. The Philadelphia suburbs get winter, but not like that. Our total snowfall is lower, our cloud cover is less persistent, and if you move to central or southern Ohio, like Columbus or Cincinnati, the climate gets closer to ours. Still colder, but not Cleveland level rough. Healthcare is essentially a wash between the two states. Penn Medicine and UPMC on our side, Cleveland Clinic and Ohio State Wexner on theirs. Both states have world-class medicine. You're not sacrificing clinical care in either direction. You just have to live near one of the major hospital systems. One real tiebreaker worth knowing is the Cleveland Clinic's cardiology program is consistently ranked #1 in the country. If heart care is your biggest health concern heading into retirement, that's a legitimate factor in Ohio's column. So let me bring all of this together. The right question here is which state fits you, and 3 variables decide it. First, where does your retirement income come from? If it's mostly 401k or IRA withdrawals, Pennsylvania saves you real money every year. If it's mostly Social Security, the 2 states are basically tied. Second, what's your home situation? If you're downsizing from a high-value Pennsylvania home and moving to Ohio with cash, you pocket real equity in the sale. If you're buying a similar priced home in Ohio, your monthly property tax bill won't be dramatically different from what you're paying now. Third, who gets your estate? If it's a spouse, Pennsylvania is fine. If it's your kids, Pennsylvania takes 4.5%. If it's siblings or non-relatives, PA takes 12 to 15%. Ohio takes nothing. Those 3 questions decide which state is actually the better fit for your retirement, not cost of living charts or generic rankings. Just those 3 questions. Now you know how Pennsylvania and Ohio actually compare for retirement and which one your situation points toward. But if you're leaning towards staying in Pennsylvania, that inheritance tax we just talked about is still sitting there. And here's what most people don't realize next. There are legal ways to reduce it, and in some situations, wipe it out entirely. But the most common move families make, thinking they're protecting their kids, adding their names to the deed or the bank account, often makes the tax bill bigger, not smaller. Sometimes it doubles it. Watch the video on screen next, because I'll walk you through the strategies that actually work in PA and the one move you can make even on your deathbed that still legally saves your family real money. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.